So you think you know office politics. Seen it all, have you? A little gossip by the water cooler, some passive aggression in an email. That's cute. Real cute. Try walking into your own damn office. A place you helped build, a team you grew, only to have some new suit, some robot treat you like you're just part of the furniture. And then when you try to make things right, try to pump a little humanity back into that fluorescent-lit hellscape, you're the one HR suddenly has a problem with. Oh, we're definitely going to talk about it. We're going to talk about how my brilliant idea to thaw out an Ice King led to a full-blown HR meltdown, and how it all ended with someone, get this, someone female, getting walked out the door. Spoiler alert, it wasn't the Ice King. Look, this wasn't just any office, this was our office. For 5 years, I'd been with Sterling Solutions. I wasn't just another drone in a cubicle farm. I was a senior account manager. More than that, I was the unofficial, let's just call it, social architect of our department. We had a vibe. Birthdays, we actually celebrated them, not just with some sad, limp slice of cake in the break room. We did Friday lunches. We knew about each other's kids, pets, the weekend dramas. We were a team, a proper unit. Productive, hell yes, but also human. We actually liked each other, or, we all played the game damn well. It worked. Then he showed up. Mark. Just Mark. Sounds like a nail being hammered into a perfectly good piece of wood, doesn't it? He was the new senior analyst, hired from some rival company, where they probably only communicated in binary code. From day one, it was crystal clear Mark hadn't gotten the memo about Sterling Solutions' its soul. He was tall, annoyingly so, with that kind of blandly okay haircut that just screams zero imagination. His suits were always perfectly tailored, always gray or navy, a silent judgment on anyone daring to wear, a patterned blouse. He'd stroll in at 8:59 a.m. sharp, not a second before, face fixed in this look of mild disinterest, like the whole world was just a slightly disappointing spreadsheet. No good morning unless you practically cornered him and barked it in his face. Even then you'd get this clipped morning that sounded like he was doing you a massive, inconvenient favor. That first week, we all gave him the benefit of the doubt. New guy, probably just nervous, right? Sarah from marketing, bless her sweetheart, baked her famous lemon drizzle cake, left a slice on his desk with a little welcome note. Next morning, the plate was there, washed, with the note placed neatly beside it. No thank you, no word, nothing. Just a clean plate, like a tiny porcelain middle finger. We tried. God, we really did. Mark, coming for a coffee run? No thank you. Mark, team lunch on Friday, my treat for the newbie? I have a prior engagement. Which we all knew was code for, I'd rather eat staples. Every invitation, every attempt at small talk, every friendly gesture hit a polite, impenetrable wall of pure, unadulterated business. He wasn't rude, not in a way HR could ever actually nail him for. Oh no, he was way too smart for that. He was just absent. A ghost in a tailored suit. He'd answer work questions, efficiently, concisely, and then his eyes would snap right back to his monitor like you just blinked out of existence. It started to grate. Not just on me, but on the others too. Especially the women. We were the ones putting in the emotional labor, remembering the birthdays, smoothing over interdepartmental tiffs. We were the glue. And Mark, with his silent, robotic efficiency, was making our glue feel, pointless. Unseen. He wasn't just ignoring us. He was, just by being there, devaluing the way we operated, the way I had helped us operate. My little work crew, me, Chloe from sales, and Jess from accounts, we'd have these hushed conversations. He's just so cold, Chloe would whisper, her usually bright eyes all clouded with frustration. It's like he thinks being friendly is a waste of company time, Jess would add, stirring her coffee way too hard. And I'd nod, letting their frustration bubble up, maybe stoking the fire just a tiny bit. It's almost disrespectful, isn't it? Like we're not even worth the effort of a simple smile. Because it was disrespectful. It was a statement. He was saying, "Your little social games are beneath me. I'm here to work, and you're all just distractions." The air around his cubicle felt 10 degrees colder. He was an island, and he was making it perfectly clear he wanted no bridges built. Well, I've always been pretty good at demolition, and sometimes, if a bridge isn't going to be built, you've got to make that island feel a little less comfortable in its isolation. This was about a month in. A whole damn month of polite brush-offs, of us chattering brightly near him, hoping some of it would stick, of him staring at his triple monitor setup like it held all the secrets of the universe and we were just annoying flies. The final straw, if you can even call something so tiny a straw, came at Megan's baby shower. We'd all chipped in, decorated her cubicle, got a massive cake. Even the usually stiff head of department, Mr. Henderson, cracked a smile and made a little speech. Everyone was there. Everyone except Mark. He'd been invited, naturally. Chloe had hand-delivered the invitation with a hopeful smile. He'd taken it, nodded, and said, "Thank you. I'll consider my schedule." Consider his schedule? For a 30-minute party celebrating a colleague bringing new life into the world? Please. He didn't show, of course. Just sat at his desk, tapping away, while the sounds of laughter and congratulations bounced around from the other side of the office. Later, I saw him in the kitchen, making one of his meticulously prepared herbal teas. I couldn't stop myself. "Enjoying the peace and quiet, Mark?" I asked, my voice sweeter than the saccharine I knew he hated. He turned, that blank look cemented on his face. "It's conducive to productivity," he replied without a hint of irony, or frankly, any human emotion whatsoever. And that was it. Something inside me just snapped. Conducive to productivity. This wasn't a man. This was a walking, talking LinkedIn profile. This wasn't just about him being unsociable anymore. This was about him actively, even if passively, undermining the entire culture we'd built. A culture I had built. He was making us all feel small, idiotic for wanting some connection. And I thought, no. No, you don't get to do that. You don't get to waltz in here and make us feel like we're the weird ones for wanting a little warmth in this sterile box. If he wanted to be all business, fine. But he was going to learn that business, real business, involves people. And people have feelings. People can be influenced. That night, I sat on my sofa staring at the ceiling, and a plan started to hatch. A nasty, manipulative little plan, I'll give you that. But he'd asked for it. He wanted to be noticed for his work? Oh, I'd make sure he got noticed. Just maybe not in the way he was expecting. If Mr. All Business wouldn't engage with our world, I'd bring a little bit of chaos into his. I decided, right then and there, he needed a good shaking. For his own good, obviously, and ours, mostly ours. My little campaign started subtly. I'm not an idiot, you know. You don't go full psycho on day one. You ease them into it. Phase 1 was what I called Operation Forced Interaction. Simple, really. I started finding reasons, completely legitimate work reasons, of course, to need his input. Instead of just shooting him an email, I'd stroll over to his hermetically sealed workstation. "Mark, got a sec? Just wanted to run these projections by you. You've got such a keen eye for detail." I'd lay it on thick, the praise, the deference, watch him squirm just a little under the unwelcome sunshine of my attention. He'd give his usual clipped, concise answers, his eyes desperate to get back to his screen. But I'd linger. "Oh, that's brilliant, Mark. Really. You know, we were so worried about finding someone who could really get to grips with the new analytics software, but you've just taken to it like a duck to water." A small, forced smile from him. Progress. Or so I thought. Chloe and Jess were my eager little helpers. We'd coordinate. Chloe would accidentally leave a crucial file on his desk, meaning he had to interact with her to return it. Jess would innocently ask him to explain some complex financial report in layman's terms, pretending to be confused, forcing him into the role of reluctant teacher. He handled it all with the same infuriatingly detached politeness. The man was a fortress, but every fortress has a crack, right? You just have to find it. When the direct approach didn't give me much emotional bang for my buck, because let's be honest, that's what this was about, getting some kind of human reaction, any reaction. I moved to phase 2, the whisper network. This, my friends, is where my real talents shine. I didn't say anything openly negative about Mark, not at first. That'd be too obvious. Instead, I'd plant these little seeds of concern. He's incredibly focused, isn't he? I'd say to Linda from HR during a casual kitchen chat, my voice dripping with admiration that was just a tad too much. Almost too focused? Does he ever even take a break? I just worry he'll burn himself out. Linda, a woman whose entire existence revolved around employee well-being questionnaires, would frown thoughtfully. Seed planted. Boom. To my team, I'd be a bit more direct, but still wrap it up in fake concern. I tried to ask Mark about his weekend, just to be friendly, you know? And he looked at me like I'd grown a second head. It's a bit odd, isn't it? Makes you wonder what he's hiding. A shared look with Chloe. A knowing nod from Jess. The narrative was taking shape. Mark wasn't just quiet. He was suspiciously quiet. He wasn't just focused. He was obsessively focused. He wasn't just private. He was secretive. The beauty of it was his own behavior was the perfect fuel for my fire. Every time he turned down a social invitation, it wasn't just Mark being Mark anymore. It was Mark confirming our growing suspicions. Every terse email wasn't efficiency, it was coldness, a deliberate snub. I was an artist, and his standoffishness was my clay. I started to misinterpret his actions, always for the worse, and always to an audience. If he sent a very direct email pointing out an error in a report, which, annoyingly, he was often right about, I'd sigh dramatically. Honestly, the way Mark words his emails, it's just so aggressive. There's no need for that tone. Never mind that the tone was usually just a complete lack of pointless pleasantries. To a sympathetic ear, my version became reality. We'd make a point of having loud, animated conversations near his desk about upcoming team-building events, really laying on our excitement. Oh, the escape room next week is going to be amazing! So good for morale, don't you think, Mark? Chloe would call out. He'd offer a non-committal grunt, which we'd then pick apart later. See, he hates the idea of team building. He wants us all to be miserable robots like him. It was a slow burn, but things were definitely starting to heat up. Other colleagues, people outside our little circle, started to notice the Mark situation. They'd see him sitting alone at lunch, or walking briskly past a group chatting, and they'd swap glances. My narrative was taking root. He was becoming that guy. The office weirdo. The robot. Then came the incident with the shared calendar. We had a departmental calendar for meetings, deadlines, and also for informal stuff like who was bringing in donuts. Someone, and I swear it wasn't me directly, though I may have idly wondered aloud how hilarious it would be if Mark's meticulously scheduled focus time blocks were accidentally booked over with mandatory fun hour, found that his calendar was suddenly filled with ridiculous, clearly fake appointments. Kitten herding seminar. Advanced Stapler Synchronization Workshop. Existential Dread Power Hour. Mark, predictably, was not amused. He didn't say a word to us. Of course not. He went straight to Mr. Henderson, our department head. Henderson, a man who usually fobbed off anything remotely human-related to HR, actually had to bring it up in a team meeting. "There's been some misuse of the shared calendar," he'd said, looking vaguely uncomfortable. "Let's try to keep it professional, people." His eyes flickered towards me, and I gave him my most innocent, wide-eyed stare. Me? Misuse a calendar? I live by my calendar. This was the first little sign that my game was maybe touching nerves beyond just Mark's. A tiny thrill shot through me. It was escalating. He was reacting, even if it was through official channels. He wasn't just ignoring it anymore. I decided to dial up my concern for him. I cornered Susan, who was senior to me and had a mother-hen complex a mile wide, by the coffee machine. "Susan," I said, my voice low and serious, "I'm really worried about Mark. He seems so isolated, and honestly, sometimes he looks, well, angry. I saw him muttering to his computer screen the other day. Do you think he's okay? Maybe he's struggling to fit in and it's coming out as, well, you know." Susan, bless her easily worried heart, lapped it right up. "Oh, the poor dear. Maybe I should have a quiet word, see if he needs anything." I mentally chalked up another win. Now it wasn't just me, it was concerned colleagues. The whole vibe in the office was changing. There was a definite tension now, a Mark-shaped elephant in the room. People would either try way too hard to be nice to him, with this sort of pitying look, or they'd just avoid him altogether. He wasn't just the quiet new guy anymore. He was the problematic new guy. My masterpiece was really taking shape. Of course, not everyone was on my side. Young Tom, a fresh-faced grad in IT, once piped up, "I don't know, he seems all right to me. Helped me with that server issue last week, no fuss." I shot him a look that could curdle milk. "Oh, Tom," I said, patting his arm condescendingly, "you're sweet, but you haven't seen the pattern we've seen. It's a different kind of no fuss, believe me." Tom wisely shut his mouth. The crucial part of any good manipulation is making sure you look like the reasonable one, the caring one, the one who's just trying to help. So while I was busy poisoning the well, I was also being very conspicuously supportive of Mark to his face, in public. "Mark, that was a great point in the meeting. Really insightful," I'd gush, loud enough for everyone to hear. He'd just blink, probably wondering what fresh hell this was. It was all part of the show. See, I'm trying with him. It's him who's the problem. The stress was starting to show on him, just a tiny bit, a slight tightening around his jaw, a tendency to hunch over his keyboard even more, like he was trying to physically shrink away from us. Good, let him feel it. Let him feel the pressure of not fitting in, of not being one of us. Let him understand that his precious productivity came with a social cost. And then I had my master stroke. Or so I thought. We had a quarterly review process. Peer feedback was part of it. Not heavily weighted, but it was there. I orchestrated a symphony of feedback for Mark. Not overtly negative, oh no, that would be too crude. Instead, it was filled with damningly faint praise and carefully worded areas for improvement. From me. Mark is exceptionally diligent and technically proficient. He could benefit from enhancing his interpersonal engagement with the team to foster a more collaborative environment. From Chloe, after a little cohing. Mark's focus is admirable. Sometimes this can be perceived as unapproachability, which could be worked on. From Jess. Highly skilled, greater proactive communication on shared projects would be beneficial for team synergy. It was beautiful, a chorus of concern, all pointing to the same damn thing. Mark's an antisocial robot, and it's affecting the team. We all knew Henderson was lazy and hated confrontation. He'd probably just pass these comments on verbatim, or worse, paraphrase them in some clumsy HR-approved way. This is where it started to get really messy, folks. If you're enjoying this little descent into office madness, and let's be honest, who doesn't love a bit of workplace drama, make sure you smash that like button. And if you haven't already, subscribe and ring that notification bell, because you are not going to believe where this goes next. Trust me, HR's entrance is always a showstopper. The peer reviews went in, and we waited. I imagined Mark sitting in his review with Henderson, listening to this gently curated feedback about his distinct lack of personality. I pictured his impassive face, wondering if, just maybe, a flicker of something, annoyance, confusion, hurt, might finally appear. This was the point where he was supposed to crack, to realize he needed to change, to join us. That was the plan, anyway. Make him so uncomfortable in his robotic skin that he'd have no choice but to become one of us. A week later, Linda from HR sent out a generic email, a reminder about maintaining a respectful and inclusive workplace environment. Standard stuff, nothing to see here, or so I thought. Then, Chloe got an email. A meeting request. Subject, catch up, from Linda in HR. Just Chloe. My stomach did a little flip. Why just Chloe? Jess and I swapped nervous looks. Chloe went looking pale. She came back an hour later, even paler. She asked me about Mark, Chloe whispered, huddled with us in the far corner of the break room. About the atmosphere in the department, if I felt there was any targeted behavior. Targeted behavior? The absolute nerve! We weren't targeting him, we were encouraging him to be normal. What did you say? I pressed. I just said he's very quiet, keeps to himself. That we've all tried to include him. Chloe wrung her hands. She asked if I'd heard any gossip about him or if I'd seen anyone deliberately trying to make him uncomfortable. That cold dread starting in my stomach began to creep upwards. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. HR wasn't supposed to be looking at us. They were supposed to be having a quiet chat with Mark about his interpersonal engagement. The next day, Jess got the same meeting request. Then, 2 other women from our wider circle, women I'd subtly nudged. Each came back with similar stories. HR was asking questions, pointed questions, about Mark, and about how others were treating Mark. I didn't get a meeting request. Not yet. And that somehow was even more terrifying. Were they saving me for last? Or did they think I wasn't involved? Oh, the irony. I was the goddamn puppet master. The air in the office got thick with unspoken anxiety. The laughter died. People kept their heads down. Even my little crew was subdued. The fun had definitely drained out of my manipulative game. Mark, meanwhile, just kept on working with that same infuriating calm. If he knew what was happening, he showed no sign, just tapped away at his keyboard, an island of serenity in the storm I had whipped up. Or maybe the eye of the storm. I started to feel a prickle of real anger now, mixed with the fear. How dare they turn this around on us? How dare they investigate us? We were the victims here, victims of his coldness, his flat-out refusal to engage. He was the one creating the hostile environment with his silent disapproval. It was a classic case of blaming the messenger, or in this case, the caring colleagues just trying to foster a bit of team spirit. The story in my head was still strong, still justifying every single thing I'd done. I had to believe I was in the right. Then, Mr. Henderson called me into his office. Not HR. Henderson. That was not normal. "Close the door," he said. his face unusually grim. I sat down, my heart hammering against my ribs. This was it. He was going to tell me Mark had complained, and I'd have to put on my most concerned face and explain how we were all just so worried about him. There have been some serious allegations, Henderson began, not looking at me. He shuffled some papers. Allegations of a concerted effort to bully a member of staff. Bully? The word just hung there, ugly and accusatory. Bully, I repeated, injecting the perfect amount of shocked disbelief into my voice. Who would do such a thing? Henderson finally looked at me, his eyes tired. The allegations are against several members of your team, primarily, and they center around the treatment of Mark. He paused. And frankly, Sarah, your name has come up. Repeatedly. My carefully built facade threatened to shatter. My name? How? I'd been so clever, so subtle. My name? I gasped, and this time it was genuine. But I've been nothing but supportive of Mark. I've gone out of my way to try and include him. I even told Susan how worried I am about his isolation. Yes, Henderson said, a weary note in his voice. Susan mentioned your concerns. HR has been looking into this quite thoroughly. They've spoken to a number of people. They've reviewed emails, calendar entries. The kitten herding seminar, my blood ran cold. It seems, Henderson continued, his voice flat, that what you perceived as trying to include him has been experienced by Mark and observed by others as a campaign of harassment. Harassment! Now it was harassment. This was spiraling completely out of control. This wasn't a game anymore. That's outrageous, I spluttered. Mark is the one who's been hostile. He's the one who refuses to engage, who makes everyone uncomfortable with his coldness. Mark is quiet, Sarah. He's introverted. He's here to do his job. He does it exceptionally well by all accounts. There's no company policy that says he has to be the life and soul of the party. There are, however, very clear policies about workplace bullying and creating a hostile environment for your colleagues. He let that sink in. The silence in the room was deafening, only broken by the frantic thumping of my own heart. I felt trapped, cornered. The manipulator caught in her own damn web. The next week was hell. Pure, unadulterated, HR-flavored hell. It kicked off with the official email, the one I'd been dreading yet perversely waiting for. Mandatory meeting regarding workplace conduct, addressed to me, only me. Not Chloe, not Jess, just me. They were isolating the queen bee. Standard procedure, I guess. I walked into that sterile meeting room, the one usually reserved for disastrous client pitches or, firing people. And there she was, Linda from HR. Only this wasn't the friendly, slightly gullible Linda I'd confided in by the coffee machine. She was flanked by some stony-faced woman I didn't recognize, probably some higher-up HR enforcer they bring out when heads are about to roll. Mr. Henderson was there too, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else on Earth, probably getting his appendix out with a rusty spoon. Sarah, thank you for coming, Linda began, her voice totally stripped of any warmth. This was HR Linda, in full battle gear. As you know, we've been conducting an investigation into certain allegations regarding the workplace environment within your department. Allegations. Such a bland word for what felt like a full frontal assault. My carefully crafted world was crumbling around me. I understand, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, aiming for cooperative and wrongly accused. And I'm happy to clarify anything. I still believe there's been a huge misunderstanding. The stony-faced woman whose nameplate read Eleanor Vance, head of employee relations, finally spoke. Her voice was like gravel hitting a tin roof. Ms. Jenkins, we've gathered a significant amount of information. Statements from multiple employees, email records, calendar logs. A fairly consistent picture has emerged. She didn't need to spell it out. I knew what picture it was. It was the picture I had painted, only they'd reversed the subject and the artist. In their version, I was the monster. They laid it all out, piece by painful piece. The concerns I'd voiced, now reframed as malicious gossip. The innocent pranks, now labeled targeted harassment. The peer reviews, my supposed masterpiece, now presented as a coordinated attempt to undermine a colleague. They even had Chloe and Jess's statements, probably watered down and full of "I was just going along with it" excuses. Rats leaving the sinking ship. Couldn't even blame them. Much. We have statements detailing how you encouraged others to ostracize Mark, Eleanor continued, her eyes like steel chips. How you manipulated situations to make him appear incompetent or uncooperative. How you fostered a climate of negativity around him. That's not true, I shot back, my voice rising despite myself. I was trying to integrate him. He was the one who was antisocial. He made us uncomfortable. My carefully rehearsed calm was abandoning me fast. The anger, the real raw anger I'd been nursing for months, was boiling over. Linda chimed in, softer, but no less firm. Sarah, wanting a friendly workplace is understandable, but Mark's preference for a quieter, more business-focused approach is also valid. It's not a justification for the actions that were taken by you and by others at your instigation. Instigation. Such an ugly word. But accurate, damn it. They talked about creating a hostile work environment. They used phrases like psychological bullying. They mentioned the company's zero-tolerance policy. Every word was another nail in my coffin. My perfectly constructed Sterling Solutions coffin. I tried to fight back, to argue, to twist the narrative one last time. I talked about team cohesion, about how important a positive atmosphere was, about how Mark's behavior was destroying morale. I even tried to paint myself as the victim, someone just trying to protect her team's dynamic from an outsider who didn't give a damn. Eleanor Vance just stared at me, unmoved. Ms. Jenkins, your perception of events is significantly different from the evidence we've gathered, and frankly, it's your continued insistence on blaming Mr. Peterson and your lack of acknowledgement of your own role in these events that is most concerning to us. The room went dead silent. I could hear the damn buzz of the fluorescent lights, the distant tapping of keyboards, probably Mark, diligently working away, oblivious or maybe secretly gloating. The irony was a bitter pill. I had wanted to make him notice us. Now the entire company, or at least HR and senior management, was noticing me. For all the wrong reasons. Then, Linda slid a folder across the table. My heart plummeted. I knew what was in that folder. Sarah, she said, her voice tinged with what might have been a tiny shred of actual regret, or maybe just professional obligation. Given the severity of these findings, and the company's commitment to a safe and respectful workplace for all employees, we've had to make a difficult decision. I stared at the folder, didn't open it, didn't need to. The title of this whole story replayed in my head. He was all business, we wanted friendly, then HR fired her. Her. Me. I was her. Your employment with Sterling Solutions, Linda continued softly but unmistakably, is terminated. Effective immediately. Terminated. Fired. Sacked. Didn't matter what word they used, the result was the same. I, Sarah Jenkins, social architect, master manipulator, queen bee of my little hive, had been dethroned. Ejected. Cast out. All because some robot couldn't take a joke, or bake a damn cake, or just be normal? A wave of fury so strong it almost choked me washed over the shock. Not at them, not really, but at Mark. At his quiet, unassuming, infuriatingly effective way of just being. He hadn't done a thing. He hadn't plotted or schemed or manipulated. He had just been himself. And in doing that, he'd exposed me, my methods, my whole damn charade. I wanted to scream, to rage, to throw that folder right back in their faces. But I didn't. Some shred of pride, or maybe just the dawning horror of how utterly I had screwed myself, kept me silent. I just nodded, a single jerky movement. "We'll arrange for your personal belongings to be couriered to you," Linda said, all business now. "Mr. Henderson will escort you from the building." Escorted. Like a criminal. The ultimate walk of shame. I, who prided myself on knowing everyone, on being the absolute center of the office social scene, was now going to be paraded out like a pariah. The irony wasn't lost on me, even in my daze. It was a bitter, bitter pill. Walking out of that office, with Henderson trailing awkwardly behind me like some reluctant pallbearer, was the longest walk of my entire life. Every head that turned, every whispered comment I pretended not to hear was a fresh stab. Chloe and Jess? Nowhere to be seen, of course. Probably hiding under their desks. Can't say I blame them. Loyalty, I was quickly learning, had an extremely short shelf life when HR got involved. The faces I passed were a blur of shock, pity, and in a few cases I'm pretty sure thinly veiled satisfaction. There were probably a few people I'd stepped on over the years who were secretly loving this. That thought just added another layer of humiliation to the pile. Mark's cubicle was on the way to the exit. Couldn't avoid it. He was there, naturally, staring intently at his screen. As I walked past, his head lifted just slightly. Our eyes met for a fraction of a second. No triumph in his expression. No malice. Nothing. Just that same bland, unreadable look he always wore. He gave a tiny, almost imperceptible nod, then his gaze flickered right back to his work. It was the most infuriatingly neutral reaction possible. He hadn't won. He hadn't even been playing the game, and that, somehow, made it all so much worse. He had just endured, and I had completely self-destructed. The silence in the elevator with Henderson was suffocating. What was there to say? "Sorry, your manipulative bullying campaign backfired spectacularly, Sarah?" He just cleared his throat a couple of times and stared at the floor numbers like they were the most fascinating things in the world. Once I was outside, the city noise hit me like a punch. 1 minute I was a senior account manager, a somebody. The next, I was just another unemployed woman standing on a busy street with a metaphorical cardboard box of her dignity. The anger was still there, a burning coal in my chest, but now it was mixed with this profound sense of emptiness. What the hell had I been thinking? How had I let it get so out of control? The days that followed were a blur of moping, raging, and endlessly replaying every single misstep in my head. I told myself it was their fault, HR's fault for being so damn literal, Henderson's fault for being so spineless, Mark's fault for being such a goddamn robot. It was anyone's fault but mine, naturally. The calls and texts from former colleagues? Yeah, they dried up pretty quickly. A few sympathetic messages at first, mostly from people who probably just wanted the juicy gossip. Chloe sent a tearful emoji, Jess sent a thumbs up, which I still haven't figured out. But mostly, silence. I was office history. A cautionary tale they'd whisper about for a few weeks, then totally forget. I found myself obsessively scrolling through LinkedIn, looking at Sterling Solutions' page, looking at Mark's profile. His perfectly professional, perfectly boring profile. No hint of the drama he'd been at the center of. He was still there, still a senior analyst, still, presumably, being impeccably productive. He hadn't just survived, he'd thrived, in his own quiet way. While I was updating my resume and trying to figure out how to explain this particular gap in my employment history. Creative differences wasn't quite going to cut it. Fired for orchestrating a systemic bullying campaign against a socially awkward colleague was probably a little too honest. The anger didn't really go away. It just curdled into resentment, into this bitter kind of self-justification. I had to be right, didn't I? Otherwise, what did that make me? Just a manipulative bully who got what she deserved. And my ego wasn't quite ready for that particular truth. Not yet. Maybe not ever. So, here I am, spilling my guts to the anonymous void of the internet. Why? Maybe it's a warning. Maybe it's a confession, though don't go expecting any actual repentance from me. Maybe I just need to get it all out, to try and make some sense of the truly spectacular way my career and my carefully crafted office persona went up in flames. Do I regret it? Part of me, the pragmatic part that's now stressing about paying rent, screams yes. Of course I regret getting fired. I regret underestimating Mark. I regret underestimating HR. I regret thinking I was untouchable. But do I regret why I did it? Now, that's a more complicated question. Even now, a small, stubborn part of me still believes that office wasn't meant for emotionless drones, that a little warmth, a little human connection isn't too much to ask for. I just went about trying to get it, or rather, punishing its absence, in entirely the wrong way. My methods were flawed, spectacularly, catastrophically flawed. I wanted to shake things up, make him notice us. Well, I certainly shook things up, and everyone noticed, especially HR. They noticed me right out the damn door. The irony is, I suspect Mark is probably happier now. No more forced interactions, no more passive-aggressive calendar invites. He can just get on with his spreadsheets in peace. Maybe, in some twisted way, I actually gave him what he wanted all along, to be left alone. And in return, he, without lifting a single finger, gave me a harsh lesson in the limits of manipulation. The official story at Sterling, from what I hear, is that I left to pursue other opportunities, standard corporate BS. But I'm sure the real story, or versions of it, is still doing the rounds. Sarah Jenkins, the one who tried to bully the robot and got zapped herself, I learned a few things. I learned that HR isn't just there for payroll and sad birthday cakes. They have teeth, and they are not afraid to use them. I learned that team cohesion and bullying can be two sides of the same coin depending on your perspective, and whose perspective has more power. And I learned that some people, like Mark, are just immune. You can't provoke them, you can't manipulate them. They operate on a different frequency, one that's impervious to the kind of social static I specialized in. So what's the new status quo for me? Well, I'm looking, and I'm thinking a lot. Maybe my next workplace will be full of friendly, chatty people, or maybe it'll be another den of Marks. Who knows? But I'll tell you one thing. My approach to new, quiet colleagues will be different. Maybe. Probably not. Old habits die hard, especially when you still secretly believe you were right all along, just a little too enthusiastic in your methods. So that's my story. A workplace drama that went completely off the rails all because we wanted friendly, and he was all business. And then HR fired her. Me. What do you think? Was I a monster? Was he the problem? Or is every office just a ticking time bomb of personality clashes waiting to explode? I'd love to hear your own workplace horror stories in the comments below. Surely I'm not the only one who's ever tried to fix a colleague and ended up breaking everything. At the end of the day, they said I created a hostile work environment. Maybe I did. But he created a sterile one, a joyless one. And I still think that's a crime in its own right, even if it's not in the employee handbook. They wanted conformity to their idea of professionalism. I just wanted people to be, well, people. My methods were questionable, sure. The outcome was disastrous for me, no doubt about it. But the new guy? He was all business. And sometimes, all business, with no heart, is the biggest HR violation of them all. They just don't have a form for it yet. But mark my words, they will. Or maybe, just maybe, I'll start my own consultancy. Forcing friendliness, one hostile environment at a time. Don't tempt me.